welcome to this episode of West Fox talking about Star Trek Picard. I'm here joined by Shepard and Southhound, and we are discussing the most recent episode.
You're wearing a robe.
And he is wearing a robe. And you know why he's wearing a robe is because in his mind, the writers are half asleep. And I actually disagree with him. I know it surprises you. I actually disagree with you. And the reason I disagree with you is because it's not that they're half asleep. It's that they're writing Game of Thrones fan fiction for Star Trek Picard. And now, I don't know, Philip, did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I watched portions of Game of Thrones.
And Christopher, did you watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah, all except for the last episode.
Okay, so we know that that Game of Thrones likes killing off characters. It likes jumping around. It likes having subplots that take sometimes multiple seasons to bring, be
Come
fruitful.
to fruition.
Yeah, to breathe life into that subplot. Obviously, the last season failed on many of these things, but the show prior to that, in most regards, succeeded in that. And unfortunately, this is now, in my opinion, Star Trek Picard is the off-brand clone of the original series. The scenes of Picard, Troy, and Riker are really bittersweet to me because there's a level that it was beautiful seeing them together on screen after all these years, but there's this rotten aftertaste of the nihilistic narcissism, and then throw in some expository writing and just sours it. There's this growing tinge of doubt that these aren't the characters that I know. They're the the dollar store ripoff of when you go on eBay and you can find a $10 Apple Watch that works and it looks the same, but until you dive deeper and use it. Clones have been a massive sci-fi phenomenon kind of permeating throughout franchises. And the irony, so many shows have clones, right? Star Trek have tons of clones now. Star Wars has tons of clones, which always has, but they almost overuse it now. And you're seeing that there's literally this level that the storytelling now is just a clone. And it's just a repeat, it's that whole like a clone of a clone of a clone of clone theory, where now we're just seeing characters that are inferior copies. And the line that really for me cemented this, and it just was like, is Troy talking to Picard.
So
and she says,
bad.
I'm not as brave as I used to be, Jean-Luc. And his response was, then you're getting wiser. And I was like, that's not what these words mean. Bravery, dictionary, showing mental or moral strength to face danger, fear, or difficulty. So Picard's saying, it's not that she can say, I'm not as brave as I used to be because elements of the story have said things that have made her life harder. I don't have a problem with that statement. It's the response.
Or just simple, she has more responsibilities. I mean, that's the easiest part for it. You have
what
kids.
Picard's answer says is being weak of the mind of morals is wisdom in this case of Picard. And that's not what it should be. The answer to me, it should have been something along the lines of, getting older does make the challenges larger sometimes and being brave, but our wisdom and friendships will keep us brave even in these darker times. And that to me was kind of probably one of the most damning pieces of dialogue in this there's this episode is full of really, 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 really bad dialogue and nonsensical scenes. This is actually the worst episode so far, by far. I mean, it makes episodes 1 through 6 masterpieces in my opinion. Compared to this one was just horrendous, and so that's kind of my opening rant on this one, because to me it sums up the level of these are not the same people. These are not the same philosophies. I get as people age, people change, and there's elements that you grow and stuff. But there's this it's kind of the humor of our day, where it's like the anti-boomer, right? Okay, boomer. And I feel like this episode is it's not so much a political episode as some of the other ones are, but it's very much the okay, boomer episode, given at the reveal that essentially to find the planet with 2 red suns, Riker's daughter just Googles it, and
2 red moons.
Two Red Moons. Sorry, Two Red Moons, and just Googles it.
Jeeves.
She asked Jeeves.
And that it was the captain that they had discussed earlier in the episode. I know what you're thinking. I know it sounded like an Ask Jeeves, like Wolfram or something like that, or Google it. But she was actually contacting that captain that she had been talking about that had a ship, and that he's like, no, that person's crazy. That's who that actually was. But it was still a silly Deus Ex Machina of they mentioned this person, and then of course that person knows.
There's so many drops. I must have missed that. There's so many drops of exposition in this episode. This episode to me was
oh my gosh, filled with so much crap too.
A waste of time. Yeah. This episode was a waste of time. It was, like I said, beyond the point of seeing Riker and Deanna Troi, and but again, that's still cut short because they have to throw in, oh, they had a son who died. Oh, by the way, they had a son who died, and this son died because the synths weren't allowed to replicate the medicine in their brains for him to be healed, and which makes no sense because
it's asinine. That's asinine. That
doesn't even make sense.
It was a political shot, is why they did that. That was a political shot at embryonic cell research.
Oh,
that got
you're right.
banned under Bush, and because it was all deal with because they even used something mental multisclerosis, and I was like, oh, that's ridiculous. And then they're like, yeah, since the ban of the positronic brain research, it should be easy to solve. And I'm like, amazing. Oh, nice shot.
Not that talk politics will do. I'll say this one thing. It's amazing how that was a big thing about 10 years ago, right? It was massive. And now science has moved on and it doesn't really come up very often, at least in my knowledge.
Yeah, because it wasn't needed.
Innovation.
Yeah, because they went, oh, this isn't really the necessary path. Anyway, so you have these annoying little. Like I said, this episode's a filler episode. It's another filler episode. It's very similar to the 7 and 9 episode, where the entire episode is to have a legacy character kill another character, which they did the thing I told them not to do. They did the thing. No. Oh my God.
Audience members, can I just tell you that there's not too often that we see West Fox use curse language. He texted us the F
more of a Shepherd
when
thing.
he found out what happened when Hugh passed, and I was waiting for it because I knew that West Fox was gonna lose.
He didn't pass. He was brutally murdered for no reason. Murdered for no reason by somebody who was supposedly supposed to be defending him, who decided to do the I will do the honorable fight thing, and then of course the dishonorable person, shocker, goes and kills a person he was supposed to be protecting that entire time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two times where he leaves that guy vulnerable to die. It just goes to show you swords in space are stupid unless they're lightsabers and can deflect blaster shots.
First off, where was Elnor at the beginning? The first part of the thing, because he's not there the first time you see Hugh. He's hiding. I guess he's just hiding up in the rafters. But then my second thing is I only disagree with you one part, Philip, for the Hugh death. It wasn't a brutal murder. He got a knife thrown at his jugular. I mean, it
was pretty quick. It was pretty
brutal. I said it was needless.
It was pretty quick.
I said it was needless.
It was needless. It had no value to it. It had no value in the moment and was just designed to make her continuously make her the cackling villain that she is. I'm evil woman.
Once I find you, Soji, I'm gonna get your dog too.
Yeah.
Well, can you explain to me why she knew he was kumquat when all kumquat are supposed to be women?
Yeah, I did notice that in my brain, and I was just like, I was like, oh, she probably just knows they're elves because the elves don't really realize that they're elves and magic. Because she obviously is part of my insinuation on the Sears level is she's part of that same cult / group / assassination group that he was part of. That's why she was able to face him and was willing to do it. That she was part of it
she's
at one time.
She's Vat Jat Vat.
They're all the same thing.
Dude, this is how Jat Vat and Kumquat. This is how Vash Narada or Jean Valjean and the Kumquats are supposed to fight. And that's why she puts her blaster away and he puts his sword away because they're like, this is how we're supposed to do it. Hand to hand. And it was such a exactly.
That is one of the most overused.
The mono, like just fisticuffs.
You want to talk
to create drama that doesn't need to exist.
Right. In the world of let's say in the world that we live in where there's toxic masculinity, that thing is probably what I'd say if you were like, what is toxic masculinity? I'd be like that scene when you put
that girl is toxic masculinity.
When you put two characters together and they go, I'm going to fight you, but I'm going to sacrifice everything around me for my own ego in the moment.
Exactly. That's exactly what I put.
Is what I would say is a toxic type thing. You're not proving anything. You just allowed them to you played to their goals because they had no need to
other
be honorable.
Alternative.
Yeah,
Yep.
So starting with this episode,
that ticked me off.
we of course have another flashback because that's all the show is at this point.
Gosh.
And we get to watch I will say that's a very pretty scene. I want to visit Okinawa one of these days. So I don't know if this is actually Okinawa. I don't think it is. I'm sure it's just the LA coast. But we get our little scene here.
Yeah, something tells me they're not really having hovering database up there.
Where they we actually sorry. We get our that's actually a perfect frame there. She's falling asleep there because the entire scene. Okay,
and so is the audience.
She spends the entire scene with these glasses on, like it's so ridiculous. And we lost Southtown. Sorry about that. But it happens. I'm sure we'll get him back. So we spend this entire scene with essentially her getting mind raped, and it is one of the most, again, we kind of already knew this based on her personality change again, but it was such a thing. I'm gonna try to slow it down here and see if we get some of these frames frozen in the. Okay, so we got like Earth destroying. Oh, darn it! But like they show Earth being blown up, and like later on they're referencing like hell and like the hell on Earth type thing, and I'm just like, what is this silliness? Like, it's like a nonsensical end of the world thing. She has a violent reaction and goes, yes, I will kill people and do whatever it takes, and I'll be a spy for you. Okay, and somehow the Romulans on the Borg cube, the Vashta Narada, also have the cube. Even though at this point, I think that the Romulans' brother girl, his waifu, was on the cube at this point. So somehow they're still communicating between these locations. I don't even understand what these three characters' dynamic is. Like,
well, I do, because it sounds like, because I know there was a later part in the episode. What do they say? Because I think she mentions it. Let me bring out my notebook. Because there was a question I had, Joel, because they're stating now that, I mean, clearly this conspiracy is extremely far-ranging. Because they mention,
well, that was the point.
Hundreds of star systems are all a part of this. So clearly,
yes, hundreds of thousands of people
searched hundreds.
Yeah. So this is changed from then, like, because I think
I call that throwaway dialogue. I call that throwaway dialogue as a villain who goes, "There's such a big conspiracy happening," and I'm like, "Really?"
Well, we knew that. That was the whole. That was the whole thing, right?
I think it's well, yeah, but I think because like you're saying though, it's like we've kind of assumed that it seemed like it was maybe. I'll put it this way. At least I originally thought that yes, obviously they're saying Starfleet's involved, but I thought it was more fringe elements. At this point, it sounds like this is like a federation systems wide that these governments are aware. The governments are fully aware. I don't think this is fringe elements. I think that's what they're trying to state at this point is major governments across the galaxy are aware of this, and they want to change it, but they're hiding it from the populace.
Maybe this is a perception thing, but that's what I had expected all along. When they put this secret society of the Jean Valjeans, Vash Narada grouped together, and they said, we're everywhere, and we're in the Federation, and we're in Romulans, I had assumed that meant it was a global conspiracy, so universal, galaxy-wide conspiracy. So for me, it's no surprise because that's exactly what they're setting up this entire time. They're the Illuminati.
No,
they're the
it's
globalists.
Marvel. It's a Marvel ripoff. It's Hail Hydra.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they're Hydra.
It is.
And that's
Hydra.
what they're saying, and that's what they've set up this entire time. It may be dumb and stupid because the whole idea is it passes all lines, it's all for this thing, blah 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 blah. But I don't think that's anything new what they're saying because that's been what they've been pushing this entire time. I'm sure I missed stuff on the Okinawa section.
Nothing too big.
I just wanted to say
that it was a mind rape and that it was dumb. And again, it doesn't really.
That's what I said. I said hashtag me too, hashtag Vulcan rape, because she just grabs her face and just is like
two-handed. She double-hand mind melds her too.
And implants memories, and it goes into because I don't feel like this. If this lady ends up being a Vulcan, if this woman, Commander O, whatever, if she actually is a Vulcan, she is not playing a Vulcan. Like
she actually cries out.
No,
her emotional state is not a Vulcan character. So I'm very confused of what
acting is hard
at this point. Because
I'm just waiting for some point. I'm waiting for some point because at this point too, like if she is Vulcan, her actions aren't logical.
No, it's bad. So
I just like funny she cried out. She's like, ah, and it like had this like quick scene, and you're like, what are you guys doing? This is so. There's only one time where a Vulcan after a mind meld had I could say twice. He had an anti-emotional reaction, which was Sarek and Picard, when Sarek uses Picard's discipline when he has a mind meld with him, so that he can discipline his emotions for this peace accord that they were doing. And then the end scene is where you have Patrick Stewart going through that, which was totally right up Patrick Stewart's alley. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
The other time was when Tuvok mind melds with the people that wanted emotions. They were looking for angry, violent memories because they
were getting off of his violent
tendencies.
tendencies.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the only time where a Vulcan was affected because he just dumps it into this guy's mind.
It's usually there's usually something broken involved in it, not especially when you're dumping memories in. So yeah, it was bad.
So stupid.
Well, because you know what? Because they're probably trying to base it off the one time that Spock obviously transfers himself. That's probably what they're basing off of. It was when he tries to transfer like information to McCoy. I bet that is exactly where they're trying to do that, but then put in a new Vision Quest way of trying to state something. I
have to say I disagree with that only because I don't think that
that's not what I felt.
I don't think it's that well planned. if that's it is.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I would agree with that. It's not that well planned.
I felt it was a quick turnaround to vomit and then to say yes, master, and then sure, I'll chew this random thing that you give me. I'm like, first of all, how really chew it like it's a gummy bear? Oh, seriously. I mean,
well, I kind of get it because they're trying to say it's a bloodstream thing. It ties into what happens later again. That was just silly. So
that brings up a huge point that I have, that Agnes's character in this one has been annoying throughout the whole series, but at this point, she flip-flops so much in this episode of reasons for why she's doing what she's doing. It is a flippin' roller coaster, and to add on to it, the crew on
mentally
the ship
unstable
is effing stupid.
Mentally unstable is perfect. She's nailing it.
No, yeah, that's true. Yeah, but it's not a good way. There's nothing empathetic. They're trying to make her empathetic. They're trying to. Well, we'll just say that now because it's a dumb storyline. They're trying to make her empathetic, in my opinion, or sympathetic. I guess empathetic, sympathetic. I could use those interchangeably in this case.
Well, they want us to have sympathy for her because it's like, wow, she's in this tough position. She doesn't know what to do, and she's conflicted because she's really a good person, but she understands this supposedly mind-blowing thing now that's supposed to blow people's brains, and she's struggling, but before the task of trying to protect the world, but also the emotions, and she's being pulled apart. And the problem with that is that's all good, that's all cute and good, but people who are not in that position would recognize a mentally ill person instantly. We've all been in experiences where someone is unstable and it's not hidden from us. It's like,
and the hologram ship is obviously scanning at all times and magically turns on and goes, oh, look at that. It's weird that you're on the floor since the last time I saw you when you're murdering somebody. Right. No reaction.
Stupid
EMH. I will give that. That's the because to that point,
the line was funny though.
Before, yeah, I did like the line. Please state the nature of the bloody hell. Okay,
the captain's the only guy on the ship that I'd keep on the crew. He's the only. Like I said,
I wouldn't because I wouldn't. I disagree with you for one reason, and again, this is stupid. Like their storyline is stupid for them. When he goes over and asks Agnes, I think Ralphie's the one that's getting the things on, she's the reason why they're still being followed, and she goes, no, it's me. And he goes, and then the ship shows back up, and he doesn't have and he has nothing to say about it. He's an idiot. They're all idiots. You're saying, Phil, you should know by now that clearly Agnes is is not mentally stable. You had Bruce Maddox die. You have someone following you, and she tells you straight up, actually, it's me. He's like, oh, you.
See, that scene was actually confusing to me. That scene was actually confusing to me because I couldn't tell if they were playing the I'm just messing, I'm playing with her to get her to reveal something. Because when she freaked out in that moment, when Raffi sits down and he like looks at her and he gives her this look, and then Raffi gives him a wink like, don't worry, I'll go take care of her. There almost seemed to be like there was some kind of communication between him and Raffi being like, hey, there's something going on here.
This episode was so badly cut. There could have been a version in there. There could have been a version of this, Phil, to be honest. We know things were reshot a lot these days and there's a lot of tweaks happen.
Yeah.
This episode is so badly paced and edited that could have been a version of what was happening. Because
I bet it was.
I think that's what they were doing, but they did it poorly. Because even I was conflicted. I'm like, okay, is he actually playing her to get her to say something to him? Because he clearly doesn't trust her. And he's trying to like, hey, I think Raffi's the problem, even though he's known Raffi for like 20 years. And he's like, yeah, trying to like cozy up to her. I got that feeling because then his reaction was, oh, she's in the medical bay. I got the feeling that he goes, oh, crap, I pushed her too far and she did something stupid. That's kind of the feeling I got.
Yeah.
It wasn't, oh my gosh, my lover. It was, oh, crap. That's what that's kind of what I think they were trying to do, but very poorly.
Well, and then because I have a lot of problems altogether with the whole thing. Like I said, the first time that Raffi, when Raffi's feeding her the copious amounts of cake and she throws up, first they ask for the EMH and he doesn't show up at that point, but then he
I noticed that.
Shows up.
I noticed that.
Secondly,
I thought I was surprised when it showed up automatically.
She asked for hospitality. She asked for hospitality.
Whatever.
She goes, where's the hospitality?
Because I don't think they call him an EMH. They don't call him an EMH. Though they call him a hospitality hologram. They don't call him emergency.
Yeah, but the other one's medical. So they didn't ask for the medical hologram. They asked for the hospitality hologram.
I don't
because
care.
They wanted to clean up the up.
I don't care. My second part about it is when she does fall over after taking the hypro spray of the stuff to negate then the tracking chip.
That was the way it had to be negated. There couldn't have been other ways than putting yourself in a coma. I mean, it didn't mean anything because we see that she's alive.
Here's the thing: I don't have a problem with that. I have my bigger problem is she swipes the board and she falls. The ship's not that big. You would have heard that. Like especially when you see the later scene where Rios runs down the stairs and gets to her. It's like maybe a 30, maybe like a 50-foot run. That was the first time I saw the ship.
That was the first time I understood where the medical bay and the ship was. I didn't realize it was two stories.
And it's not that far. And I'm confused of how they didn't hear everything going on or her falling.
Well, that goes back into the previous one,
like looking down the hallway.
Yeah, it's very weird. So I know we can dwell. So we're gonna have to skip through some stuff here and just hit some fast points on this because this episode is really bad.
Was 3 pieces of cake funny or dumb?
Dumb.
I wasn't even paying attention to that part, to be honest. It was
Joel?
so.
You didn't notice?
I was just thought it was stupid. Honestly,
I thought it was dumb too.
It was more just filling dialogue because they have no idea what to say. So they're like, "I had 3 pieces of cake and I just kept going back for more."
It was the joke of the drugs because she was like, Ralphie was like, "Let's go do drugs," and she's like, "I just want cake." And I thought that was actually could have been funny. Like that could be funny in another show.
That could have been funny if they had enough character development between the two of them. Yeah, that could have been funny. Like, here, I'm going to take care of you. Don't worry, I got some stuff for you. She's like, cake. She's like,
yes, yeah, cake.
Yeah, cake.
Cake flavored vape.
Yeah. So the other part I have here, and I think this is the spot right here. So we're gonna move next thing is the
if
continuous
rip tracking you with the tracker. Why does he have to be within sensor range to follow you?
I don't know, Phil. We're gonna move on because there's so much we can. Like I said, we can spend way too much time on all this. I know we can spend way too much time on it.
He's outside of range, yet he's in range for them to spot him. Wait, they can track us with the thing, but then why would he ever find himself in tracking range of these clowns ever to let them know that he's following them? What?
Yeah, we're gonna move on because that's it's so many holes. So the other thing that I noticed in this episode is the continuous blatantly ripoff of Lord of the Rings music. So here we're gonna try to play this scene right here.
Seriously,
it like straight up ripoff.
Sure copyrighted?
No, I'll do it short.
Okay.
Oh wait, at the wrong one here. Hold on.
Yeah, just shush, Phil. Let it happen.
Ready?
Well, I mean.
Like that little. Well, I don't know if that's Phil. You're more musically. I have to say.
That was
literate than I am. What is that like? Those little three. Ready again? Well, is it? Like that's straight up like Lord of the Rings.
Gay.
Da, 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 da. Like that's straight off like Lord of the Rings ripoff there.
It is the theme. It is their.
So you're talking about the
Picard
theme,
song,
bum, 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 that the kind of the triplet function.
Yeah.
Would be through there. Yeah, I mean, but in fairness, it is in their music theme. That was basic. They were just replaying the theme of their.
They were playing the Picard theme throughout this episode.
It sounds. Let me tell you. All I know is when that music plays, my next snaps goes Lord of the Rings. Where, again, that's
it's like hearing the beginning of like The Hobbit. It's like hearing the beginning of the Shire song. It's like everyone just kind of ears perk up and you smile a little bit because you're like, oh.
I'll admit I don't hear that, and I listen to the Howard Shore soundtracks almost once a week through. When I'm doing my homework,
Okay.
I love
I just heard
Lord of the Rings
maybe
soundtracks.
someone else out there, if you agree with one of us, let us know what you think.
I do agree, Joel. I did kind of go.
Yeah, I've heard
I just hear
Especially too, since this episode is literally, if we're gonna go there, and especially where you're at, this episode is 3 different storylines going on of 3 different people trying to do different things, and clearly, as we see here, one of the ones we have is another archer, blonde-haired archer, who's helping out everybody. I mean, it's like they really just want to rip off Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah. Lord of the Rings and like I said, Game of Thrones. So
yeah,
this whole interaction between these two was so weird. It instantaneously became besties.
Mary
Besties.
Sue. That is the definition of a Mary Sue.
Quintessential.
All the women love you. Everyone likes you the moment they meet you. She's like, I like you. You're amazing. You're wonderful. It's okay that you're an android. You're perfect. You're brilliant. And it's like,
So
you guys have to keep saying this, but it's so not true.
I also find it dumb that, and I don't know if this is where you're going, Joel, but I also find it's like, they're trying to hide. Picard's partially still not trying to give Soji all the information, and yet then he's like, oh, who was her dad? Commander Data. And you assume that's not going to make her go, wait, Commander Data was an android. And I laugh how it's like her reaction is kind of like, you're like, duh. I don't know why you would ever say that, Picard.
Well, that's the other part.
Like, if you're trying to keep her hidden.
Her reaction to all of this is completely nonsensical. She recognizes she's different, and then her next thought is, this guy just came and saved me from a Borg cube while I was being attacked and someone was trying to murder me, and now what if this is 4D chess, and the Romulan was fake trying to murder me, and then this builds a thing, so I don't trust anybody. You know what? She knew this guy for 2 weeks.
So
and
I
she's
actually
like,
disagree
and
with
everyone
you.
reacts like she's she was being captured by 2 years.
I disagree
Everyone reacts
with you.
like, yeah, she was being mind screwed for 2 weeks.
So here's the thing.
No.
They revert. She's first. I don't think that. Unfortunately, I don't think she's a great actress. There was a moment.
She's not. She's not.
But they're also, and I also blame the director and stuff because they're directing her as a child. They took her from being a adult character, and now in this episode she's 12 years old, and so they've converted her. The moment she found out that she's an android, she becomes a 6-year-old, or between a 6 and 12-year-old having temper tantrums. The line where she shoves her Picard, and that whole Picard. This series is just Picard getting lectured by other characters about how he's wrong.
Other women, Joel. By other women,
and it's not even in logical ways or sense. Like I swear, this episode feels like this episode, when it comes to this part of the episode, it feels like they're trying to say that they've been on, like, if there's an over familiarity happening. So there's exposition dumps. We have to Philip Riker and this entire characters on, we have to retell the story of what's happened so far. So you ever watch anime and there's a recap episode and you're like, oh God, why do we have a recap episode halfway into the season? And this is just a recap episode. So if you ever watch anime or even shows that do recap episodes, that's what this episode is. So it's half of this is just them recapping what's happened prior, and they're at the same time, they have no idea what's happening, but they're also overly familiar. So all of a sudden they're like, oh man, Picard, I know you've only been at the house for 15 minutes, but you're not really nice to this girl, and you're way overstepping your bounds with her, and you're like, what? Well, no one knows anything about this. Like, this girl doesn't know anything about herself even. Like, doesn't even make sense. Also, again, we're kind of keep this going because we're at a long time, but the production value of this episode, again, I did look it up, and Southhound had brought it before that. They are saying that they claim they cost $8 to $9 million per episode. Unless this includes salaries, and they're including, and when I say salaries, they're saying like they're paying Patrick Stewart and all these actors like $100 million for the season. And yeah, because
surprise me.
I don't know how an episode of this production value can cost that much, because they literally filmed it at a crew member's cabin in the woods, and they didn't even do any production work to actually make the house feel sci-fi. Yes, or sci-fi. Right. Like you look at older Star Trek stuff, the most you get is just
Riker going, "Turn on the shields," which I kind of like.
Yeah, I put on.
That was fine.
I even put in my notes, wow, it's nice to know that HomeKit still survived to the 24th century.
Right? I mean, and again, the obsession with the show and again, the costume design of the show has gotten so bad, because there's a scene later on when Soji and Riker's daughter is sitting in there in the bedroom and she's laying on the bed, and I swear she's wearing like a Metallica t-shirt.
And I'm like, yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And I was like, in old Next Generation, they always had, even if it was something that was like casual clothes, they always took the time to give it something that didn't make it feel like 21st century Earth. They'd always embellish it. They have a different angle cut on it. They have a level of flair on it.
Sometimes it always came down to like having a more like unisex look even for their stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It was like modern
male or female. It was kind of a unisex, like, oh, anybody could wear that.
But here they're like, we're gonna give her the another Lord of the Rings, or what's that? Where the Wild Things Are look. We're gonna rip off the Wild Things, where the Wild Things are for the daughter, and then we're going to have her look like a standard teenager. Like this scene, if you showed someone this scene alone, they would never know this is a sci-fi show. Like they would not, other than if you just watched it visually, it does nothing that gives it a sci-fi vibe to it. Like I said, the house has nothing in it. And I get it, they're like, oh, we're trying to live simply and stuff like that. But we learned kind of later on the reason they lived there is because there's regenerative properties, and it was they're trying to save their son, which is fine. And I did like the little pizza scene. I feel like there are times in episodes and scenes where you can't, we talked about this last week, where you can take the time to save money on an episode because you have other episodes that might need more money for visual effects and all the other elements of it. But there's little things you can do to make the space feel like a science fiction space still, an alien space. Like there's production design, little things. We see them throw holographic screens on things all the time. And then this episode, they're like, no, we're not doing anything creative other than we're going to throw them in a house, and then Riker will talk to the computer once. Oh, and she pulls out a cell phone that has Google on it. Like, again, Phil brought that they're talking to the camera, but it just was really bad again. And again, all the dialogue in this scene is cringe.
It's really bad. Real fast, Joel. Can you scroll to, or get to that scene where it is? I think it is Soji and
when she has a tick. Let me ask. Was it when she has a tick? Oh.
I think it is right before the tick, which I did put that in there too, because I was like, at first when she did the head tilt, I was like, man, that was really bad. Like it was super obvious. And then he goes, and then they have Riker go, well, that tilt was obvious, and I went, oh, well, that's why you guys had it in there.
I told you she did that on the Borg cube. I called it. She did it on the Borg cube.
Philip, I'm trying to explain to Joe something, so shush real fast. This is my turn to see if the blood went away from the lighting.
No, actually, here. It's all healed. It is healed. She is healed.
No, I know that. Okay. Yeah, well, I know that. But no, there's a scene where I think it's Soji and Deanna talking, and like kind of like in their garden little thing on there, and she's just sitting back. And what got to me was, to your point for production value, like it's right before the lecture. Thank you. I think you're right, Phil. The camera. Yeah. The camera, it's just that simple view, but it's like the camera's moving the whole entire scene. And it's just them talking.
The shaky cam, yeah.
The shaky cam, and it's like what? Could you not get a steady cam for this scene? Like, look at this. Why is it? It is just shaking the entire time. It's just like this little like.
Yeah, no, I noticed that too. It's very.
Like, I was getting dizzy.
You don't. Again, they're trying to have this moment where they're talking, and they don't allow.
Like right here. Oh, we'll let it go right there, Joel, because you're seeing it.
Yeah, they don't let the scene settle. They don't let these scenes have, again, it's that pacing thing where they don't allow, again, this is exposition dump type stuff, and this actually should have been a scene of her being allowed to be mentored by Deanna Troi, who is a counselor, and actually mentored here, and actually given advice, and
worst character on TNG,
they're playing to her 12-year-old attitude, her 12-year-old as a child, here's a candy to make you feel better, versus going, well, here's the reality of what's happening, here's life, and well, welcome to reality type thing. You know, we're gonna get to the bottom of this. You know, hey, we know who you are. You know who we are. This girl knows a lot of stuff. Like she can say that she doesn't. You know, there's two levels of, let's say, your memory being changed, right? You like, let's say, okay, we all used to camp in Oregon. So someone said, oh, that never happened. You're like, oh, well, that's weird. Like, I remember doing that, and someone said, well, that never really happened. And you can show that never happened. You're like, oh, okay, that's weird. But at the same time, you wouldn't be able to say, well, you have brown hair, you have white hair, and you're like, no, I can see what's happening right now.
No.
I can look at what's happening in this moment that I was just almost killed. Only reason I survived being murdered was because I broke through the floor.
Exactly.
So you have.
Well, this is my.
Go ahead.
Well, this is part of my thing. If we are still under the assumption that she's attached to data in some way and somehow, that means she has the analytical processing power to analyze all the situations she's just had over the last 2 weeks, and she can come to a probability.
Correct.
Doesn't have to be perfect, right? But data would do that. You'd be like, data, what's the probability of such and such? Well, I would say it'd be around 78%. Okay, so then you say to yourself, okay, I'm an android. I'm recalculating this. The chances are that these people are trying to help me, given that I am an advanced. I appear to be an android. I was just busting through a Borg floor, and they came and saved me. The Romulans tried to kill me. That these people, I could give them an 80% chance that they're actually trying to help me. And given now my new paradigm change, the paradigm shift that she likes to talk about in a couple episodes back, with that new information, that she'd be able to analyze those protocols and come to an analysis of that, instead of acting like a child all the time, except for when it's convenient for her to be Google, when it's things like, oh, this has a range of 40,000 light years. Oh, this when the blast thing was assimilated. Look, if she has a positronic brain, that means she has access, and especially if she's becoming partially activated, she should have access to all the protocols that a computer would have. Like data.
Well, and it's kind of funny because one of the first, when she is talking too, like she's fighting this whole thing, and yet at the same time she says simply, and I kind of chuckle at it too, where she's like, well, I'm probably only like 3 years old. So she acknowledges that at that point, I think when she was talking to Riker's daughter, she's like, well, I'm clearly only 3 years old, but then yet she's still fighting with the rest of it and having a problem. So it's like she accepts.
That's what I said. It was stupid.
So it's like it's really because they have her accept, like you said, they have her accept certain things so she can do things, but then they have her not accept so she can be an a-hole to Picard, and then everyone else can be an a-hole to Picard.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's what for this scene, and I'll give my piece, and then since I'll have to be leaving in about 20 minutes, Marina Sirtis comes off really poorly in this. Counselor Troy was always really annoying in general, in my opinion, in TNG. Sometimes she had some good things, but she was just kind of.
I would say she's not usually ranked as the higher character. She never bugged me as a character. I thought she always added a level of. She was the alternative voice, right? She was
kind of fifth. Yeah, and I think that's why I annoyed me, because she was always wrong. But in this, it reminded me of two proverbs, actually, because I felt that Jonathan Frakes' performance was actually pretty gosh darn good. In that his character was normally a stoic character. He was a commanding character. I mean, the dude's 6'3", right?
So he looks so huge to Picard. I don't think I've ever seen. Oh, yeah. He looks so huge to Picard in this. Like, and I don't mean
Picard
like
looks like
he's
a
obviously
puppet.
gained a little
like
weight.
He'd be like his ventriloquist.
Person, but he was so big.
Yeah.
He is a big guy. He must be like, I don't know how but he must be like 6'5".
6'3". I just looked.
Okay, he looks a lot bigger.
So, yeah, I know. Well, girth. When you're scrawny, it doesn't look as tall, but when you got girth,
it's like when you're hugging me, Philip. That's how it looked like. When you're hugging me, that's how it looks.
Exactly. Yeah, her attacking. I mean, she has this 4-second conversation with her, and then she attacks Picard. Like, you're a jerk. You're pushing her. You're pressing her. All this BS. And it's like, whoa. You just first hugged and kissed me and said, oh, it's been so long since we've got to see each other. We got to spend, and then all of a sudden you talk to some android chick for 5 seconds who's so mentally confused and everything. And your thought is, I'm going to attack and berate Picard. What? So I put in,
especially since she doesn't know actually what Soji's really feeling, because she's an android and she can't sense.
She's an android,
it's like
right? It's computer.
Like, I mean, she has 2 seconds of dialogue and she's able to diagnose someone. It's like, sorry, Deanna Troi, as a counselor, really your strength came from the fact that you were a Betazoid.
Well,
and also from, like,
so and then you had Riker.
But
then you had Riker, who comes into the situation and he's counseling, he's supportive, but he's also picking holes in parts of Picard's errors, which I didn't have a problem with, and it made me think of, like I said, these two proverbs. So, a friend loves at all times, Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born out of a time of adversity. And that's kind of the relationship that they shared through those 7 years on the Enterprise. But the key one that came to me was this is kind of plays the dichotomy of his wife and Riker and Troy. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. So here you had at the beginning, Marina Sirtis kind of brings him in. It's like, oh, you're so wonderful. And then she bashes him completely without any analysis or any time to think. Riker, on the other hand, ushers him in, but is a good counselor because he wasn't trying to smother him with flattery. He was earnest in his concern. He goes, I told you should never have retired, and you're kind of ruining those oats. I care about you. He's trying to he never said, there was that one line when he was like arrogance, and I was like, oh, please don't use that word because it's been overthrown by all the crazy women in this. But I felt,
I liked it the way that he said
the integrity. Yeah, he brought together the integrity of a wound of a friend, I felt, for the most part. He was trying to make sure that Picard was on the right track because there was issues and concerns, and I felt that was probably the warmest way we've seen a character interact with, short of Hugh with him as an old legacy character.
What's the thing? May you rest in peace? I'm not Catholic, but
then he was significantly more supportive, and I really enjoyed the warmth that they brought in. Plus, they made Riker a nice dad. He wasn't a crappy dad.
Yes.
They also didn't make Riker a crappy dad. He's like, so that's what I liked. That's the only thing I liked in the show.
At least for a lot of his interactions between Riker and Picard felt like it did feel still like that same, like a commander talking, Commander Riker talking to Picard, but he gets to say a little bit extra because he no longer is technically under him. And that's what I honestly felt like. It was like, whereas maybe Riker would always kind of, like the same way that Chakotay calls out Janeway, like they did a really good job of that sometimes he would go, I disagree with you. I don't agree with this. I think this is a bad decision, Picard, Captain. And again, like you said, Riker gets to kind of give that and say, hey,
I would say Riker was less of that,
you'd screw up.
Riker was definitely more of a fanboy than Chakotay, though.
Yes.
Chakotay's actually, I think Chakotay's probably the best commander in all of Star Trek.
Ooh,
honestly, he's probably one of the best commanders.
No.
On the way that he, on the way that he, not in every sense, but on the way that he actually, on the way that he supports Captain. On the way that he supports the Captain and yet still will push against them as an honest.
Okay, I don't want to get a long conversation but this is what I'd say.
All right, bad take for the day. Thank you, Shepard.
He did a good job being a captain that had 2 crews under him, because he had to, the Maquis crew was under him, and he had to be a Federation captain or a Federation commander, but also be the captain of his Maquis crew at the same time without having them become insurrective and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And
I'm not saying commander as a full level. I'm saying commander at least ends.
Let Joel finish.
Interaction between commander and captain.
But if you ask me who is, anyway, so
no, tell me who's
the best
commander, Joel? Who's the best commander?
Oh, probably Spock.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. No,
that's what anyone who loves Star Trek would say. So I am now concerned.
If you were like to pull your,
we'll have to play that game. Why I'm saying what I'm saying.
We'll have to play. Well, here we won't go to that. We'll have to play the game later. We'll have to do a thing. I think there's 2 interesting videos we'll have to put down. I'll put my notes here, which is a Picard personality breakdown.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of break down his personality, and also your dream crew. We'll have to do a dream crew episode. If you could cherry
that'd
pick,
be cool.
Because
I like of all the generations.
If you could pull people and be like, I want to pull you, because if you're like, who would I have, Geordi or Scotty? I'd probably be like, well, probably Geordi. In the sense of what it is.
Scotty.
No, I mean, I would like to have Scotty be fun drinking buddy. Actually, to be honest, the one thing nice about the Next Generation crew is they had a really good camaraderie in the bigger crew.
Personality-wise, I would like Scotty on my ship because he'd be an enjoyable engineer, doing everything else. But
I mean, you have to pull Barkley in too.
Geordi kind of has some extra stuff.
If you want to succeed, you have to throw Barkley in as a science officer somewhere, right?
Oh, for sure.
Have Barkley. You got to deal with some crazy. You're like, I know I got to deal with a little crazy here.
Just turn off all the holodecks if you're getting Barkley.
The question is, what's your crew size allowed though? Because in the original series, it was basically a 3 crew that was together, except for Scotty intermediately, and then
we'll figure that out. That'd be a fun episode.
We'll do command.
That'd be a fun episode. We'll have fun with that because I think that's fun. Okay, so
bunny corn sausage sounds delicious.
That was funny.
I just thought
that was funny.
They had the scene, and I was like, "What is that on that bunny's head?" And then they're like, "Yep, bunny corn sausage." I was like, "I love you."
No, you know what's funny is, you know what's hilarious on that is, it reminded me of Lord of the Rings, where it's like, he's like, "What's that?" He's like, "Taters." He's like, "What?" He's like,
"Taters, precious." Yo, potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. What's taters? I love that.
And wriggling. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. When you eat the fish, give it to me raw and wriggling. I love that.
Honestly,
those movies are the best. Just
true. So,
all right,
on the last, we'll get here in the last little bit here.
Have to.
There's not much more to talk. For me, like I said, this is just, there's so much you could dissect in this one so bad. I think we've had actually most of it. Go ahead.
Here's a quick question for you. So we see our kumquat boy get really, really terrified, which is kind of embarrassing. And then he finds this random transporter emergency icon, SOS beacon, attached under a table. Is it Romulan or is it Federation? Because it's in freaking English.
I didn't understand what that was.
Yeah, I was really confused at that point.
I did not know what that was supposed to be.
I mean, is there a Federation starship that's kind of around, kind of keeping an eye and waiting for emergency for former XBs, or was that Hugh's transporter card?
Question. Wait, ready? Is it what 7 and 9 gave Picard?
Oh yeah, actually, I think you're right. It might have been because didn't she give him that little thing like, "Hey, if you ever need to call me"? Yep, you're probably right, Joel, because the next episode's bringing 7 of 9 back. I bet you.
But it was hanging from a table.
That is the token.
Well, maybe someone's had one. Maybe.
I think they just shot really weird the way that they have him pull it out or grab it.
Or was it like Picard dropped it and it just so happened to be there where he was hiding?
We'll find out in the flashback next episode, Phil.
Yeah. No, like probably. Yeah, we'll probably find a flashback. That's probably exactly it.
I do want to make a point because I know it's something that I talked to you about, Joel, and I want to bring Philip into it real fast because I don't know if we're going to talk too much about Borg again. So, Philip, I had a question for you.
Oh my gosh.
You know, Bjayzel's whole.
Sorry, before you continue, didn't we know that Troy was pregnant with a boy in one of the movies? And that's why they had a boy. Then they couldn't have a boy anymore. They wanted a girl instead, so they killed him off. Wasn't she pregnant in Nemesis?
I can't say. I've only watched Nemesis once because it was so bad. I hated
because
that.
Because if they did that to kill the kid because they didn't want to have a boy in the show when they knew that there was continuity with having a son, just so they could drag a woman in. Again, crap.
They don't care about. My opening thing, which is the nihilistic part of it, which is they can't even give Riker and Troy a satisfactory life. They're like, nope, they have to be in the backwoods
murder their child,
living because their child died because stupid reasons. It is again the theme of the show.
You know, they retired and ran away just like Jack O'Neill does to a cabin in the woods. Because, you know, let's pull from other sci-fi shows.
Because Riker wouldn't be.
So my question. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Well, I was going to say my question real fast to you, Philip. So you know how we know how Bjayzel's whole point was stealing X-Borgs and taking their parts, right, to sell on the black market. So I have a question for you, and I already asked Joel on this, and I want to ask you this. Where did all the X-Borg come from that they were reclaimed? Because the only Borg reclamation project is the artifact, and then you would only have 7 of 9 in each ship. So where were all these Bjayzel finding all these X-Borg and selling them off to? Because all the Borg on that ship clearly look like they stayed on that ship because he was very protective of them, as you see even in this episode where he breaks down and cries when they're all killed, or at least the ones in the area. So I had that question to you, Phil. Where was she finding all the other Borg to reclaim?
I'm still assuming from the Borg cube, from the reclamation project.
So?
I mean, we don't know how. Yeah,
like
I mean,
a different section
Hugh's
maybe,
been
or
doing
like
his
stole
thing.
them away.
There could have been other. Well, Hugh could have been doing it in other places. The Borg cube may have been the biggest repository of Borg access. Now, I agree with you.
What do you mean another place?
They just said it. They just said it for the sake of saying it.
Where would you say another place?
Well, the way that Hugh talks about it, the way that Hugh talks about it is if this reclamation project is the biggest that they've taken on, is the way that he kind of interprets the situation when Picard lands on it. That's why. But I don't think. I think.
I mean,
but
as far
I
as
agree
I
with
know,
you
there
in
isn't
that
any other
they clearly
reclamation
they didn't
projects.
define it properly, and it would not surprise me if you're because, like you said, in real canon, there's never been any other Borg minus Hugh, Picard, and Seven.
No, Icheb and the 2 kids.
7 in Icheb.
And each of the 2 kids are in the Delta Quadrant, so it doesn't matter.
3
Are they
kids
still the Delta-
technically. It's the twin brothers and the young girl.
Are they? Did
Masai
they? That's right.
are
They did
both-
drop them off in the Delta Quadrant. I forgot about that.
They did.
Yep.
Yes.
And
forgot
they weren't
that.
really assimilated. They were being grown, as we recall.
They were still in their incubation chamber, so they weren't as fully assimilated as other ones, which is why.
Yeah, because they kind of brought
in the
that
Voyager
back from the
which is
original
why
series,
the Voyager
or
episode,
TNG, and
Icheb's
then
able
Voyager.
to change his cortical node over to 7 because he doesn't need the cortical node as much.
Yeah,
Because of
exactly,
him not
because he
being
was
fully
born.
assimilated.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah,
I forgot about that. Yeah. So I mean, okay, I guess we'll wrap up here on this one and last notes on it. Just because it's again, this
The
is one of
lens
those
flares
episodes-
are crappy.
Yeah.
The lens
Like,
flares in this were horrific for him for Narek walking to his ship. The ship
hate-
looked awful
I hate to
when
do
he was
this.
flying in it.
Yeah.
But I have to go.
Yeah, that's
So,
good. So
you guys continue chatting and doing whatever. I love you guys.
see ya.
Have a good rest
Love
of
you,
your
bro.
day.
Have a good day.
and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, so wrapping up on this episode, this is like I said earlier at the beginning of this, least favorite episode so far. A lot of problems with this episode. Not so much, and they're just because it was a bad episode. Like there's nothing that I was like, wow, yeah, we have some feels in there again. We have the feels of seeing Picard, Riker, and Troy, but they're all spoiled, right? It's like tainted chicken, or it's like a
Yeah.
tainted food product where it's been thrown and you're like, well, yeah, the base of this should have been good, but it's no longer allowed to be fresh and delicious because it was ran in the mud and it was ran over and the dogs that licked it and stuff, and maybe it ran into the backyard. So I don't know. I have this scary suspicion that Seven's gonna die soon now, because obviously the show's now modus operandi is to bring back legacy characters and kill them. So if there's a theory, we have to do brotherly theories again here. But if there's one, I would say, yeah, I have a feeling that Seven's gonna be murdered in this series now. I know she's coming back next episode. It looks like she's gonna become the new Borg Queen, or somehow.
That's what it looks like.
Tying into my theories, which is Hugh makes one little random dialogue note of about that the Queen's quarters inside the cube have more powers than he wanted to touch, and so now and that if Elrond has a XB, they can access it, I guess, but they killed all the XBs on the cube now or something. I don't know.
I don't know if they killed all of them, but at least killed that group.
Yeah, killed a
around
large group of them.
Hugh.
I again struggle with a lot of this. A lot of things are said that have no. Again, the show's dialogue is very poorly written. It says a lot of things with no meaning, and I think that it's going to continue to hurt the show. Again, I brought this up before, where one of the show's big mistakes is instead of allowing things to grow over time, it just jumps and forces you to have a scene. So instead of allowing Riker and Deanna, I'm gonna pause there. That's kind of pretty. Allowing them to have time to maybe know what's happening, do the communications. They're hearing things through the Federation.
Right.
They have to do a dump. And again, I wish that scene, instead of the scene being, let me guess what's happening in the story here so far to Riker, I wish that scene had been them allowing them to communicate and talk and plan. Because again, the show made us a point where Picard's like, I had a plan, kind of, not really, and things are happening. And I'm like, I kind of feel like that's how the show's writing process was. There's a plan, but not really, kind of, we're kind of ripping off other things. And so that for me kind of, again, sums up, except this was the worst episode so far. That's all,
It was
it's
their
so,
worst episode.
and so we'll see what happens next week.
Like you said, it was another exposition-heavy episode. Some of it where the exposition is coming from unlikely sources. Like I have to laugh that it's Riker's daughter, like pretty much giving the history of Picard, and the like the relationship between Picard and Riker, so Soji can understand it. I'm like, wouldn't it have been better that maybe that was something Riker would have explained to her? Kind of as someone who's there, or even just a different way of having it. But it was like, really, there's this
different way of
massive
having it.
exposition dumped through her, just saying it like, oh yeah, Captain Picard, and I'm kind of sitting there going. And here's what I'll also put on it too. Maybe this is a little bit nitpicky, but especially with what it sounds like, because I'm not sure, and maybe you can correct me, Joel, if you felt it differently. Did Riker and them? It almost made it sound like Riker never took over the Titan that he was supposed to, like at the end of Nemesis. It almost made it sound like pretty much after Data's death, I didn't get that. They wanted to leave Starfleet. Now, like I said, I'm not. It was because it was kind of convoluted, but then it sounded like maybe they left after Thad dying. But again, it's like I'm not quite sure where they're saying they actually left.
No. He took over. No,
Starfleet.
You're wrong. No, he definitely took over because they said that Thad was on the ship for a while, and he was writing all those languages.
Oh, okay, that's right. You did. They did say that. Was
so he probably
they brought in so much. It was hard to even listen, like understand what they're all saying, especially when they're because Thad did this and the daughter's name, and they made random languages, and here's their Vivian.
Yeah, they like to do. Like I said, they were trying to rip off Tolkien. The son was supposed to be Tolkien by creating languages for his Elven books and novels.
Yeah, exactly.
And stuff.
Yeah,
again,
I was about to say the same thing. I was like, oh, so he's writing Sindarin, which I also laugh because the Romulan language sounds more and more elfish with like each episode.
Yeah, they are very confused in the show. So that's it for us today. Thank you for joining us here in West Fox. We are pleased you joined us for this review. We will be talking some other stuff here because Picard's almost over. There's only 3 episodes left. Actually, yeah, 3 episodes. There's 3 episodes left. We'll see what happens here. Again, I have a feeling since I know there's a season 2 coming, it's gonna be a cliffhanger.
Ooh,
we're gonna be left with a bunch of theories.
One thing I did see, Joel, I don't know if you saw.
Go ahead.
Did you see that there was? I don't remember which part of the scene it was. If it was like a flashback scene or something else, but there was a scene where they were showing something and it showed more of the rings. I don't know if you saw that. There was like it was like showing some data stream or something else like that. There was some random picture as a part of something, and there was more of those, the big ring with the double rings. And I don't know if it was early in the episode. It was not too long after the mind meld.
Don't know what you're talking about on that one. What are you even talking about?
I'll find it and I'll try to send the picture to you.
Okay, we'll probably talk about it next week because I'm sure it'll be something.
Yeah, it looked more of like it was just a random little quick scene, but they had it was like showing the same kind of ring structure that like her necklace is made out of, and we've seen for like the nebula.
Oh, no. Okay,
it was just like that quick little.
No, you're talking about the drawings. There's drawings that I think Soji was drawing, or the crazy Romulans were drawing, that look like they're almost a formula, either a chemical. They look like essentially either a structural bond, or they could be a planetary orbit system. There's something. Yeah, there's something between that. Could be a macro scale or a micro scale, or nanoscale essentially, of either atomic structure or a planetary system, something like that. Yeah, I do know. I do know what you're talking about there. Yeah, there was something there that was like referencing that there's a secret hidden speaker.
Yeah, there's still more secrets hidden, even
more
though
mystery box.
Like you said, that's what I get. Because is there 3 more episodes or 4 more episodes?
3. There's 8, 9, 10.
3 more episodes. Okay, so yeah, I know we've said it before, but that I think is my biggest point is we had to do a whole nother exposition episode and rehash on the 7th episode.
Yeah, lots of rehashing.
They clearly have had rewrites. This episode was clearly supposed to be something else, or was supposed to be 2 episodes that they kind of put into one. That maybe Picard was supposed to be on the planet a lot longer than they actually were showing here. Because that's what it makes maybe feel like to me, is maybe they should have been on that planet longer than I think this episode gives them for what's happening. I wonder if there was 2 episodes.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know it's bad. So again, thank you for joining us today. Have an excellent day. We'll see you next time, and make your day amazing. See you next time.